Hello, hello. So, this is just a continuation of Nero's Guide to Bloody Palace in Devil May Cry 4. So this will be 21 to 40, ideally. And I think it'll actually go a little faster as long as I have less basic things to say about my enemies, but that's not always how that works, so we're gonna keep that up in the air. I also don't know all of these battles beforehand as well, because I tend to forget this part of the game. I remember 30 vividly, because that caused me the most nightmares, but when I was getting good at this game. But we're going to kind of play it by ear. So 21, I'm pretty sure, is a frost and two of these shades. So the frost is going to stay there. Like, he's not going to come out until you approach him. So if you're feeling like it, you can just focus on these two and not really worry about him. The more fun thing, though, if that matters or concerns you, is to go after him. The more enemies you can attack at once without getting hurt, like, the more confidence you have, the faster you'll have a better style meter. Not that confident, apparently. And the more time and, I guess, points in a way. Like, the style system is kind of points, but in the Bloody Palace, it's going to cap out pretty quickly to 99999, or however many nines there are. So don't worry too much about that. Maximizing your devil trigger meter and your timer are your main goals. So this is the same thing in reverse. I think that's the idea of these two levels. Where did you go? Oh. Except for this time we've got the bigger shade and then two frosts. And once again, the easier thing to do is take out the shade first and then focus on the frosts. But if you prefer having fun and getting hit, you can kind of aggro everyone and go and see where it'll get you. Once again, frosts are really easy in the air. Hit them with a revolver a few times and then followed either with a buster, like a snatch buster like that, or a charge shot. And that should be pretty good. Alright. So the first time, oh yeah, the lizards are called assaults. I remember that right now. So this is the first time we see assaults and frosts together. And they are one of the more frustrating combinations of enemies, because assaults are really good at close range, and frosts are really good at long range. So the game kind of pits you against both of them at once. Oh, okay. That is not a pleasant attack. The game kind of pits you against both of them at once. That's like the exact example. He's close, they're far, and they're both doing what they do best. And you can't keep your focus on both like that. I would recommend getting the assault somewhere and going up against the frosts. If one of them freezes over like that, it's usually fine. Focus on the other one, because when this one, you should aim for when they come out of the ice that they're alone, and then you won't have to worry too much about the health they gain back. The other thing assaults and frosts make kind of like are really frustrating together is the fact that they can both shield. Like, the assaults have literal shields, but the frosts sometimes block with their ice arms. And so you've got enemies that can block your attacks and at the same time can really take advantage of the time you're not attacking or the time you're in, like, stunned. So they're going to be one of those combinations that you're really afraid of. These guys, not so much. The rule is, honestly, as long as you can use this to hit your other enemies with, they're more on your side than on the enemy. They do have the ranged attack where they shoot their head at you. And the same rule applies, it's just pay attention to that. You can use either Devil Trigger or one of Nero's side dodges, or jumping, just to avoid that. Here's a fun fact. I'm sure a lot of players know this, but newer ones might not. A lot of this game is about positioning, so a lot of time we assume that when we jump, we're jumping out of the way of something, literally, and you don't want to get hit by it. But both the characters' rolls and their jumps give you invincibility for a few seconds. So it's kind of deceptive how you dodge with them. So you can actually dodge almost anything as long as you time it right. So this is the first time we're dealing with Blitz and someone else. These three assaults are kind of guarding the Blitz, and the Blitz won't come out until one of them dies, like so. I didn't do it too well, but the main idea is to get all of the Blitz to low health. Sorry, all of the assaults to low health before you have to deal with the Blitz. Kind of like that. Actually, that worked out pretty well. So that when the Blitz, you can get the Blitz alone pretty easily. Because the Blitz, not that much of a threat when they're alone. You're going to want to use Nero's charge shot to take your shield off. And rinse and repeat some buster combos. You can turn off Devil Trigger for the last one, and that not only will give you some trigger back, but it should still do enough damage that one charge shot after while it's recovering will take it out. Alright, so if I recall correctly, we're in the zone where Blitz are just going to start showing up. Yeah. So we got Blitz and dogs. As Nero, you can use the dogs very effectively to take the Blitz's armor off, but there's this weird thing that happens. Whenever Blitz is on screen, Nero's going to want to target it. Yeah, I'm going to take that hit. Nero's going to want to target him with your lock-on. You can use... oh, that's a big important thing. If you can get the dogs on the other side of the Blitz when they use their attacks, the Blitz will eat their like fireballs instead of you, so it won't knock you out of the buster. Sorry, now I've kind of forgotten my train of thought. Oh well, I'm sure it wasn't that important. Using... Alright, where are we at? Alright, so we got Frosts and Armors. This isn't as bad as Frost and Assaults, because you're dealing with a slow enemy and a fast enemy, where both Assaults and Frosts kind of have the same speed. And left alone, as you can see, the Angelos, not only do they fight the Frosts, they kind of stay in the air, which is not where the Frosts tend to be unless you put them up there. So when enemies kind of divide themselves like this without really your help, it's really good. You're not going to worry too much about them when they do that. And then with the last one, enjoy your combo, launch, buster, and have a great time. So in the first 20, you get 30 seconds every time you finish a level without getting hit. Here you only get 20. So this is around the time that the timer starts to matter. That's the Assault Buster that I promised that you never want to use, and you will sometimes use like that. Another change that they did in Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, oops, that was an early, is that you can knock these swords away from you, kind of as a projectile, much like Nero's Buster, using your main melee weapons. You'll see it most on Dante, just because a lot of his attacks incidentally do that, whereas Nero, since you're already going to be bustering them, you're not going to notice as much. If you can use these swords on the Blitz, you're going to have the best time. As you can see, they tend to knock down its armor the best. The swords are also nice because they're less likely to knock you out of comboing the Blitz. So you can do this in peace. And they don't pose too much of a threat by themselves. Oh, pay attention to you because you have one health. There we go. Alright. So I think that was 28. Could have been 29. I'm going to double check here. Okay, 30. This is one of the greatest levels that I think the game really starts getting fun at this point in Bloody Palace. You are facing 4 Frosts, I think like 6 Assaults, and then a Blitz. All in one. This is when the marathon nature of this game becomes, like of this mode, becomes prevalent. Like I said before, Frosts are very dangerous when they're far away from you and when they're left alone. So try to keep them off screen, try to focus on one at a time, get them in the air, and buster them as soon as you can. The buster on Frost is really good because it provides really great area of effect around you, which you can use to take out the other ones. So you have 2 left. Once you have 1 Frost left, the Assaults are going to come out. And as mentioned before, they're a vicious combo, so I recommend focusing on that last Frost as fast as possible. And this is when you're going to start to see something that this game loves to do. And what this game loves to do is give you way too many Assaults to deal with. Assaults, they move fast, they attack quickly, they don't show a lot of their attacks. In my last video, I mentioned that Assaults are both the best and the worst. And this is when they're at their worst. A lot of the times they're just ready to be comboed, but but if you let them come in a drove, a lot of the methods they attack and fight you kind of get more aggressive as there's more of them. Like the fact that sometimes they'll hold their shield up becomes a much bigger problem when there's 6 of them and anyone can hold their shield up and knock you out. The fact that they have that weird arm-splitting area of effect, that also becomes much more of a problem when there's many of them. The fact that burrow underground and dash at you, once again, the more there are, the more the problem is. Alright, so we'll just take the Blitz out. And that's level 30, which I believe is... maybe it's not level 30. Maybe we're just going to deal with this a little bit. So I just remembered what I was going to say about the Blitz earlier. The Blitz, for some reason, will also attack other enemies, and strangely enough, will prioritize other enemies over you a lot of the time. Which doesn't tend to matter because their attacks are so aggressively... like they sweep the screen and you're going to get hit if you're in the vicinity. It doesn't seem to matter if they're attacking other people, but you can kind of use that as some free time to pick off the other enemies. Right near the end, I think it's like level 97 or 96, you're going to face 2 Blitz, and the fact that they attack each other for some stupid reason is going to make that battle so much easier. I think you kind of have to provoke them, because I don't think they'll go after each other, but if you get one of their attacks to hit each other, they'll go for it. I think it's like Doom 2 rules or what have you. But that's really easy to do. Once again, they have sweeping attacks. So after 30, honestly, things kind of slow down a bit. As mentioned before, these things are just meant to heal you, feed you, and give you back all the devil trigger that you may have missed. And I think a few of these, yeah, these shades are going to come out. In the second part of the 20s and 30s, I guess in the 30s now, the Bloody Palace is going to send you a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys in groups. So it's a good time to learn how to deal with them, because, as I'm sure you're aware, you don't do a lot of damage when they have their cloak on. You do damage, it's just not at a great rate. So your goal is to take their cloaks off as soon as possible. But an interesting way to like achieve that is that using the second hit of the fully charged blue rose and allowing them to keep their cloak on, you can kind of get them grouped up so that second explosion will hit more of them and you can kind of get through their cloaks that way. Most of the time you're going to be taking one out of its cloak while damaging the others, hopefully killing it, and then going for the next one. These guys aren't too bad, but once again, when you deal with them alone, everything is easy. There's the Mephisto or the Faust. genuinely can't remember which one's which. I do know one of them is one of them. But big shady here. Ooh, I'm gonna buster him accidentally. And I think I'm too late on this. Yep, just caught it. Yeah, he gives you a surprisingly long amount of time. The only reason you shouldn't be able to do that is if, like me, you knock him away instead of just focusing on him. Alright, so we're back to Mega Scarecrows, and the same thing is true. As long as he's distracted, you can focus on these two for as long as you want, and they're really the threat in this level. They attack at a lot of different angles. They have a dash attack that's really hard to avoid. Not that one. They'll like rear back and they'll slide at you real fast. But in the meantime, the Mega Scarecrow isn't even showing up. So you don't, there he is. So now he's by himself and you can just finish him at your leisure. If you're Triple S, it's a good time to get your taunts going, get as much Devil Trigger as you can, and let him pop. One more thing to say about those little shade guides. When they one of the changes they made for the special edition is that if you interrupt their attacks, especially their needle-based attacks, like with their fingers, if you interrupt it by pairing it with your sword, they will briefly be vulnerable as if they didn't have their cloak on. Nero can't really take advantage of that in the same way that Dante can, but it's still something to consider. So as you can see, we're going to get one out of its cloak. We're going to just wail on him a little bit. And just keep moving. Use that explosion that we set up to take out the cloaks of a few others. Without a cloak, they don't really do anything, so you don't actually need to focus on them. You can actually take your time to... Alright, come together. Too bad. You can just take your time knocking them out of the cloak one at a time until they're all damaged like this, and you don't have too much... You can just take them out with a gunshot. Or if you're feeling a little angsty, you can just switch. Once he's out, he's not going to do anything. And I can just focus on this guy, combo him, and then come back. Yeah, there's a high chance he's going to go back in the cloak before I can kill him, like so. But he's alone, so he's not really going to do anything. Fun fact, I don't know which number this is, but if they fall outside of the arena, they will actually fall indefinitely for a second, which makes you excited that you can kill enemies this way until you realize you can't because they'll instantly cloak. So if, the second shot of a charge attack, or if you try to snatch them when they're off the edge, you're basically wasting your time because they're just going to recloak immediately. If you knock them out and snatch them in time, you can sometimes pull them back on to stop them from recloaking. It's not going to happen most of the time because you'll be at the edge, and if you're at the edge and you pull them, they are still counted as off the edge, so they'll just recloak. So what are we at? We're at 35. Around 35, we're back to regular threat times. I think 31 to 35 is kind of like a nice little break. This level is kind of a call out to the first part of like 21 and 22, where you have these guys and a frost. And just like this, you don't really need to worry about the frost. You can just take out usually 2 of them without a problem. I think by 2 it'll come out automatically, but if you can get all 3 out like this, you just have your free reign to combo any way you like. And just finish him off. So 36. Then we're going to have another big Mephisto. I think this is kind of a carbon copy of a previous one, except for having 2 arm skeletons, you have 2 leg skeletons. Use these swords, kind of pull it out, and do the same thing. Just as a reminder, if you try to fight this guy in the air, which frankly you might have to do in the later difficulties, like Dante Must Die or 81 plus in the Bloody Palace, you're gonna have to fight this guy fairly. And that's not as much fun, because he blocks your attacks, and if you block his, he is so mad at you that the flurry of attacks you're going to get is not worth it. Alright, so we're back to assaults. Around this part, you should be kind of familiar with getting the assaults away from these cloak guys, so you can not really worry about them. If you're doing good on time, you don't really need to worry. You can separate everyone, leave that guy to die, and recur your style points when you're back there. Get back up to triple S, get your timer keep going. Sometimes I'm going to charge up to 3. There's absolutely no reason or rhyme for it. I just do it sometimes out of impulse. Considering it's just one attack, it's not as important to do that. Alright, so this level is kind of tough because the second you take one out, the blitz is going to come in. Blitz are kind of annoying with these cloaked guys, but not the worst. It's just because they attack from the air and blitz attacks from the ground. It makes it kind of a problem to deal with. But once again, once the blitz is by itself, it's the same rules as always. Get that cloak off, buster that dude. Don't get too close. That's not what you want to do. And wait. There'll be times where his shield seems to go off. Oh, that's perfect timing for another fun fact. This is not a fun fact that I'm 100% sure of, so there's an asterisk on this. But I'm pretty sure that Nero's Nero's Blue Rose and the charged shots deal more damage the closer you are to an enemy. So, especially early on when Blitz give you the time of day to just kind of hang around, you'll notice that if you release the level 3 charge shot right in their face, it should take the shield off. But if you fire from further away, it doesn't always. Once again, this is anecdotal evidence. I'm not going to go and try to prove it right now, but take it as you may. So 39, we're just about done. 21, 40. Last time they gave you dogs. This time they give you these sapling things again. These 4 can be kind of frustrating if you were ready to focus on comboing this guy and you forgot that they're coming, because their attack can interrupt you. So, I mean, don't forget about them. And now you can actually see kind of more frustrating things this guy will do. Take that shield off, and you're good. So as before, going into a boss, you want to have full health, full exceed, full charge, whatever makes you confident, honestly. Like I said, I only go to exceed 3 sometimes because it seems like a good idea. Whatever puts you in your groove in this game is what you want to do. To be honest, this is like one of the few times I actually have the game sound on. Most of the times I'll just put on some electronic music or, whatever to kind of groove to, because it is a game based on rhythm and getting in the groove. So whatever you can do to get you there, you'll probably have better results. So, I can't remember the name of the giant frog demon. I genuinely can't. I think there's 2 of them, because there's the first one Nero kills and the second one Dante kills. This is kind of the same thing as Burial. There's not too much of a difference. This guy's actually, I find, easier than Burial, where he's like a big, dumb punching bag for half the battle. A lot of his attacks are very telegraphed, and you don't need to worry. So twice in this fight, he's going to run to the other corner and create this blizzard. Make sure to get a charge shot out. and his lures are gonna come out. His lures are actually harder than he is, I would admit, because they can't really be interrupted very easily, and they dodge better than you'd expect. Your goal is to get them in a state where they're either dodging or moving or attacking, and hit him with the level 3 charge. Ooh, I did not see you. With that, they'll usually leave and he'll come back out. Same rule as before. Yeah, he's gonna put the blizzard back up. He really does go down easy in the first part. You don't need to worry too much. A lot of his damage is avoided by not being in front of him. This grab attack they'll do, I'll see if I can kind of trigger it again. I obviously have like 18 minutes of timer, so I'm not too worried. Was that enough? Okay, no. So I'm going to try to get them to... Yes, okay, so when they do that, they're going to grab you. You got to devil trigger out of that. Otherwise he's going to do that. For some reason his teeth don't appear when he does that attack. I don't know why. They're also very susceptible to bullet fire when they're doing that attack, so that's a great time to use that charge attack. But as long as you wail on them a little bit, he's going to come back out. Is it like Dagon or something? I feel like it's Dagon. If they fall down, you can buster him back into the battlefield, but at that point you have to have stunned them with enough damage, and usually that's more than enough damage for him to come out in the first place. There we go. So he's out. Once he's out the second time, he's going to go into this rage mode, but he's pretty much done anyways. Oops. So there's not really, you're not going to see too much of it. Just keep moving to his peripherals or to his, I guess his blind spots, like he's a truck or something. Use your devil trigger to dodge most of his attacks, and then I don't actually usually get to buster him because he has less health than you'd imagine. But one buster should be enough at the end. And that brings us to the close of the 21 to 40. This part went a little faster. At least I hope so. I haven't been keeping time. And it's also where the Bloody Palace kind of opens up to being what I would say difficult, because the next section focuses a lot on the seedlings, and those demons paired with the assaults, the lizards, are very, very frustrating. So, with that in mind, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.